Hello everyone, welcome to Parrot Psych 101. I'm David and I'm joined by Pickles and Scampi, and today's video is going to be discussing parrot psychology and various aspects of parrot psychology, how they apply to how we interact with them and the way they think in these situations. These are areas that we often get questions about, and I felt it would be very useful to explore them with you all. Now, have you ever wondered why your parrot is always interested in things that you're interested in? Why they're always coming over to bother you while you're on the computer? Why they're interested in your camera? Or why they're always trying to chew your mobile? And that is because parrots like what you like. Parrots are a flock species. This means they rely on their flock mates at all times for defence and all sorts of other things. And that means they're going to show an interest in what you're interested in. If you're interested in something, that means it's interesting to them and they're going to want to know what you're doing. So ever had your parrot obsess over your mobile? Ever wonder why? The reason behind it is very simple. You, their flock mate, are very interested in it, constantly interacting with it. That means they are too, and they want to interact with it. And they will interact with it the only way they know how, which is chewing it, biting it, or playing with it. Whereas obviously we know how to muck around with it and do all sorts. Scampi here absolutely loves watching himself on the mobile. He loves watching all sorts of videos and short streams. Whereas Pickles and pretty much all the other conures actually just love chewing them. It's the same with my computer mouse. I'm constantly using it, so they're interested in it. And again, it's very simple because I'm always using it. You can sometimes use this to your advantage, however. If there's something you want them to interact with or something you want them to try, like a food, you can show yourself using it and interacting with it. Again, you may see your parrot when they're out during meal times wanting to have a go at your plate. Just leave them their own little plate with some of the safe vegetable items on the side, and then you're using their psychology to get them to eat something nice and healthy. Another aspect of parrot psychology is biting, and biting is a very common behaviour. You know, parrots will bite for many reasons. They will bite because they're exploring, they will bite because they're threatened, they'll bite for all sorts. And the key to this part of parrot psychology is more our response to it rather than the parrot's biting itself. So I'm not going to talk about the reason behind biting here because I've got loads of videos on it. However, I want to talk about how we respond to biting. Often when we're bitten, we will react with a loud ah or a noise, or some people even recommend saying no or doing all sorts of things like that. However, this only actually fuels the fire, and this is where the psychology comes in. Parrots do not distinguish between positive and negative reactions and see everything as exciting. So if you're shouting no at them, you're screaming, it's exactly the same as if you're laughing or responding in a different way to their behaviour. So when you're reinforcing that biting behaviour with a reaction, you're just going to get more of it. So it's really important when you're getting bitten not to react and keep it neutral. If you want more tips on how to deal with biting, I've got lots of videos on the channel. I think I've even created a whole playlist because it gets asked about so much, where you can learn what to do. So, like most animals, parrots respond really well to something called positive reinforcement. Now, positive reinforcement is just adding something into the environment that makes a behaviour more likely to occur. For us humans, it works really well. For all animals, it's the best way to get any good results from any animal. For example, giving me a treat and asking me to do something is much more likely to achieve a good result than shouting at me, telling me no, and then asking me to do the same thing. Obviously, as a human, there are some nuances to it, but you get the gist. If you want to see a behaviour, linking that behaviour with something positive, such as a favoured treat, will make it much more likely to occur. And this is really the key to all sorts of parrot training. It's not even a hack, it's just an obvious thing to do when you want to work with parrots and really interact with them and key into what motivates them. And that will be treats, just like with us and all other animals. They are going to be food motivated if you provide them the right diet. They're going to be motivated by praise and reactions in the right situations. So making sure you're always positively reinforcing interactions and behaviours, so just going to the cage, training and everything, really work well and really be a great tool in understanding how they think. So it's no surprise that this is the key to parrot training, as it allows us to form really positive relationships and have good interactions with our feathered friends and move that forward in a really great way. Parrots are very curious and mischievous by nature. Parrots also like to chew things, they like to get into places they shouldn't. If you've got a parrot, you've probably experienced this, and generally be very naughty. This is because they are very intelligent and chewing is part of their natural behaviour. They explore with their beak, they like to forage by chewing nuts and all sorts of things. They will just chew things because it is something they just evolved to do, really. Now, undesirable chewing often gets worse because we give big reactions and we don't offer our parrots an alternative, because if there's no alternatives in the environment, of course they're going to chew things we don't want them to, you know. We need to give them something else to do. For example, no pickles, don't chew my mouse, no bad bird. It's a big reaction, you know, it's going to reinforce it and she's going to want to do it more, just like with the biting. So it's more important to do something a bit more positive with it. So instead of popping pickles somewhere boring and giving her no alternative where she'll gravitate back towards the mouse or something undesirable, you need to offer something fun, like a bit of foraging or another fun activity such as a bit of training maybe. You can just do a quick bit of training and that will key into her psychology. It will make the other thing more fun and interesting. It will give her something to do to keep her busy, because parrots are so intelligent. Now, leading on from this, punishment is probably one of the worst things you can do to react to an undesirable behaviour in a parrot. It is just something that's proven not to work with parrots, and it's something it's a bad smell that won't go away, just like other things like dominance. So be careful when you're using punishment, because it's not an effective technique. Now, this is where the parrot psychology comes in. Parrots do not link cause and effect the same way we do as humans. Their psychology is totally different, and as such, you need to approach them differently. Certain forms of punishment are now just outlawed with our own kids, especially in the UK, and frowned upon. So why should we apply the same thing to our parrots? Having a parrot is just like having a kid in some ways, but a completely different type of child. So if you're hitting a parrot, if you're flipping a towel at them, if you're tapping them, spraying water at them, yelling at them, mentioned earlier, you're not going to have the effect you want. Often you will have the opposite effect of what you want. You will have a fear of the object, fear of you, fear of your hand, a break of trust, or just more of the behaviour you do not want to see because there's a reaction. It's the same with putting them back in the cage. Your parrot will often learn that if they want to go back in the cage, all they have to do is bite you or do something you don't want to see. Say, for example, your parrot's out and about, they nip you, and your first thought is, right, back in the cage, all done. They will just bite you because they want to go back in the cage in the future. That's the link they will make, not the link that biting equals going back in there and that's bad. You have to be very careful when you're thinking about how your parrots think and how they're reacting to what you do. And it's as much about training us as it is about training them. Also, another thing I want to quickly mention as well is going back in a cage shouldn't really be a punishment, because the cage shouldn't be a cage. The cage should be a bedroom. It should be seen as somewhere fun and great to be, with loads of foraging toys, loads of fun things to play with, and just a safe environment for them with loads of space to explore and enjoy. So if you're seeing that cage as a punishment, it is not really fulfilling the role it should be. Now, this next subsection on parrot psychology is kind of useful because I've got a perfect example on my neck and on my head right now, and that is dominance. I've talked about dominance in the past, but I felt because it is part of psychology and a misunderstood part of parrot psychology, it'd be worth talking about now. So dominance is something I see that keeps cropping up. It's an old school way of thinking, and again, it's a bad smell, like with punishment, it just won't go away. So here it is again. Parrots are often seen as trying to dominate us humans, so when they try to get up high, when they bite us, when they squeal, when they generally do things we don't want, people seem to see they're dominating us, and that is just simply not the case. Most of the time, when a parrot is doing something like that, they have a good reason that has nothing to do with dominance. Let's take Pickles for example. She's sat on my head now because my head is warm and it's nice up high. She can look around. Another parrot may gravitate towards your head when they're scared because it's nice and up high. Your parrot may bite you because they feel they have no other recourse. They may feel threatened, or we just haven't respected boundaries, or they may chew things simply because they love doing it. They're not doing it to spite you. They're chewing it because they don't have any other alternatives to chew. They just love chewing things. The concept of dominance is just that thing that will not go away. It just stinks and hangs around. It's an old school belief, as I mentioned before. Parrots are a flock species and they don't really adhere to a dominance hierarchical structure. They cooperate as a flock to survive. You may get some sassy birds, like Pickles up here, but as a rule, they don't have an alpha structure like you may see in a pride of lions or a mob of meerkats. They, will jostle for food, they will push each other out of the way, but they just don't have that same hierarchical structure. And don't forget, because parrots are so intelligent, it's really important to give them agency of choice over their actions. And that means giving them a choice is important for us humans. Any animal is such an important thing. You'll get much better results if you give your parrot a choice to step up or do something rather than forcing them to do so. So if I wanted Pickles to come off my head, I'd want her to step up voluntarily. I wouldn't want to force her off there unless it was a dangerous situation. And you can achieve that again by training, offering treats, and by positive reinforcement. Often dominance is a problem us humans have and a thought we have, it's just nothing to do with our parrots. And that links very nicely to my last subsection on parrot psychology, which is actually more about our psychology because I felt it was important to talk about, and that's anthropomorphism. And anthropomorphism is basically applying human attributes to our animals or other things. You can apply to all sorts of things. So parrots have their own ways of thinking and reacting to their environment, developed by millions of years of evolution. However, it's important to remember they are parrots, they're not humans. So treating them like humans is kind of unfair on them and can lead to lots of misunderstandings. We often apply our values and our emotions, our thought processes onto other animals, and that's what anthropomorphism basically means. And it's completely natural to do it. As humans, we will do that because that's our way of thinking and it's the most logical way of approaching problems from our perspective. However, it's really, really important to just take a moment, take a step out of it, especially if you're having problems, and think, this is a parrot, they want to do parrot things, it's not a mini human. So how can I approach this situation from that perspective, not from mine? And I've got a really, really good video that explores this where I talk to Dr. Jason Crean, who's a leading aviculturist, and we talk about the problem of anthropomorphism and how we can sort of get around it and what sort of issues it causes. It's really worth watching. It's a bit long, but I'm sure you guys will really enjoy it. I also have more content of this sort on my Patreon if you want to check that out, with lots of sort of extra in-depth delving. So guys, this brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know Pickles and Scampy certainly enjoyed it with all the cuddling. Any comments, just let me know. I'm happy to talk to any of you. I do plan to do more of these in-depth parrot psychology delvings in the future, but I want to research a bit more myself so I can sort of learn a bit more about it and give you the right information. So you can sort of think about this as an intro to it, and then we'll have more courses later on. But in the meantime, from me, Pickles, who loves sitting on the head perfectly happily, and Scampy, who's just cuddling the back of my neck, take care, have a really, really awesome day.